She was a choir. I was a choir. I was a second alto, which is like the lowest female part that exists. Except tenor, I guess. I'm a bit same tenor. And what else did I do? Did congressional debate. I bet that doesn't exist. I mean, obviously. Anyway, congressional debates when you pretend that you're in Congress. I don't know how your government works. It's terrible. Sorry. But anyway, you pretend to like propose laws, and then you like argue about them. It's the coolest activity ever. No nerds at all. Everybody's dressed in suits, shaking hands very firmly. It's just like, what is this? But it did teach me to speak extemporaneously. But only about like economic subsidies. So that's a great, really dinner conversation. Yeah, but I was my vibe. I was a little bit angsty, but I never got in any trouble. Because I had two older siblings and they did all of that. So my way of rebelling was not rebelling. What were you like as a teenager?
I was similar in some ways. I was also very angsty. I have 4 older brothers, so I was kind of the only girl and the youngest, and so I was always trying to prove myself. Always trying to be cooler and tougher and like get my brothers to let me hang out with them and their friends because they just seemed cooler and tougher. They were always getting into trouble, so they actually were much cooler and constantly suspended. And so I don't know, in high school somehow that like gives you street cred. And so I was like an angry kid. I also listened to a lot of like sort of screamo music. I mean like I listened to System of a Down.
Oh my god.
Like a lot. I don't know if you're familiar with that. This was like rage music. But I was only in the back of our car, like at any time ready to battle. Like breakdance battle. Always had like a blue box ready. Like that was my life for a while. And we'd go to like breakdancing shows all the time. And like I was ready to like, you know, practicing my up rock, my sit step, my power moves, my poses, and whatever. That was.
Could you spin on your head?
I could spin on my head, yeah. That's like I used to do talent shows and stuff, and it was weird. I was like angsty, but also like over it, you know. And this way, it was really ridiculous. And I was totally the kid who would like slam the door and turn on the music, you know, when I got angry. And I'm so glad I've like outgrown that. Though recently, I will say this: 2 years ago, I remember this very distinctly because I was so embarrassing. I was at my parents' house just visiting, and me and my mom got into an argument about something, and I just got really angry, and I went into one of the old bedrooms, and I closed the door, and I turned on music, and I was like, wow, I'm still doing this. So, yeah, not that kid anymore, but definitely had a lot of angst, and I wonder, is that why I was still writing adult fiction? Is it because we still feel, you know, so freshly young adults?
I don't know, but I do know that my feelings were real.
Yeah.
And what didn't help me was when people told me to get over it.
Yeah.
Or that I was being irrational. That didn't help at all. So I think a lot of young adult writers feel like this time of life is worth honoring and telling the truth about and not condescending to. So
Totally. Yeah. So true. Okay.
I got really excited recently because Twin Peaks is coming back next year or the year after. And Battlestar Galactica is a favorite of mine.
Yes, nerds.
Orphan Black.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm sensing a pattern. I'm trying to say if I watch any shows that don't have any fantastical elements at all. I mean, comedies, I guess. Yeah. The Baby Project.
Yeah. You guys watch
Yeah.
It's great.
TV, yeah, that's my TV repertoire. I'm trying to think what else I didn't watch that much TV when I was a teenager.
Favorite movie as a teenager?
Movie as a teenager. Oh.
I know this is hard. You have to like,
It's a tough.
Jake Deep.
I'm gonna think about that.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
Get back to it.
Tell me your TV, and then I'll.
Okay.
I'll think about it.
I will say this is old, but I still like, I asked my husband the other day, who's right there, my friend's like, hey. I was like, I forget why. Someone asked me, you know, what do you do when you're in a bad mood? I was answering an interview question. And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, Grayson, what do I do when I'm in a bad mood? And he was like, you watch Gilmore Girls. And I was like, oh, right, I do. I will eat like cold pizza and like chocolate and just like sit. Rory! That is my happy place because it's like the town I want to live in. So, and I watched it as a teenager and still doing that.
Okay.
I know, it's not exciting.
I think my favorite movie as a teenager was Mallrats.
Yes!
James Allen Bob. I don't know if it would hold up now. I'm afraid to try, but it's so funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah.
Mallrats. Wow. Back in time.
I know. I'm glad that I heard that.
That I can answer. That every time I think about it, I think, yes, I'm glad that I wrote that. There's a line in Shatter Me where Julia is talking and she said, Julia is the main character, and she says, I spent my life folded between the pages of books. And for me, that one sentence was so autobiographical. Like that was me growing up, that was my life. Folded between the pages of books. Like it's like those were my friends, those were my companions, and they still are. So I felt like I was sort of leaving a part of myself on the page when I said that. So what about you?
I like one of the lines in Allegiant is, we can be mended, we mend each other. I like that because it applies so much to the person saying it, and suggests so much about how far they've come and what they've learned. And so I also think it's important in life to know that wounds can heal, and that you're not irreparably broken.
Totally agree. I think that's beautiful. It's also one of my favorite quotes from your books. There's so many to choose from.
Do you have other just quotes that stick with you in life, regardless of writing books or whatever?
Wow.
We can talk about this for, we're just going to say our words for the entire year.
Because words, right? I mean, yes, absolutely. I think when I leave tonight, I'm going to be like, there were so many other ones that I love and stick with me all the
That's
time.
why we're taking the favorite pressure.
Yeah. Not necessarily like, because my absolute favorites, God, I have to rack my brain forever. But there are some that I keep like on my phone, that I find on Tumblr, and a lot of it's poetry. There was this one thing that more recently I found on Tumblr. I love Tumblr. And I don't even know the attribution. I don't know who wrote this. It was just like a sort of a screenshot. And it reads, I saw a man pursuing the horizon. Round and round, they said. I was disturbed at this. I accosted the man. It's futile, I said. You can never, you lie, he cried, and ran on. And I thought that was so lovely. Because that's how I feel. You know, like, don't give up on your daydream. And, I don't know. Actually, don't give up on your daydream was a quote I also read recently. What about you?
It's hard for me to recall one specifically, but I do have a good writing quote about writing. Or it's actually about a lot of things, but I've always heard it in the context of writing. But I think it's important, especially for young writers, to hear. And it's a Samuel Beckett quote, and it's, I think, is that wrong? Oh my god.
Samuel Beckett.
Now I'm on stage in front of all these people, and I'm like, if I quote this incorrectly, someone will tell me later. Forget who it's by. Look it up yourself. It's very short. It's ever try, ever fail, no matter. Try again, fail better. So every time I write something new, I'm like, don't worry. Like, if you succeed, just try to fail better than you did last time.
Yeah.
It's like a low bar, but like a really powerful idea.
Absolutely. Because you can edit a bad book, you can't edit a blank page.
Yeah.
So.
And no book will ever be perfect, because that's kind of impossible when it comes to books. The thing that one person loves is the same thing that makes another person hurl over a wall. So
that's the beautiful thing about books. It's so subjective. Absolutely. talk about this forever, so
let's move on. It depends on the book. I've been both. You?
I'm more of a pantser. Pretty consistently. Prose or plot? Like you get to choose fancy words or lots of action.
Like which do I like or which am I better at?
Both.
Oh. Okay, I love reading fancy prose every now and then because it's sort of like when you read Jane Austen, you're like, oh no, I can never do this. My writing style is super sparse, very straightforward, and I just don't do that sort of thing very well. So I love reading it, I think, because it feels so inaccessible to me, but it's such a wonderful miracle on the page. Anyway, but I'm better at plot, I guess. I love action. I feel like I'm better at it, but I still really need to work on it. So with that caveat, plot.
Yeah, no, I understand. I feel like every time I write a book, I'm still figuring out how to write a book.
Yep.
So,
what about you?
I love both. I think both are so necessary. I feel like you can have a really fancy prose. You can have really fancy prose, but no plot, and it's fun for a little while until it gets really boring. But you can actually have like a really well plotted out book with no fancy prose, and you just keep turning the pages. But I am actually a sucker for fancy prose. I will stick it out just because I'm like, wow, what a sentence. Because I think that's, I don't know, I'm so interested in crafting sentences. I think that's really cool. Kissing or action?
Writing or reading? No. What I would prefer reading with, but writing action. I discussed earlier in the store when I write a kissing scene, like the most clinical thing ever. It's like, so-and-so put his hand on so-and-so's left cheek with his left hand, and then tilted his head 40 degrees to the right, breathed in 1 inch at a time at approximately 1 inch per second, and their lips touched. And then when I go back to their eyes, I take this like list of actions out and try and make it feel like normal instead of robust. I do enjoy like fixing it, but when I first write it,
I'm realizing I'm much more romantic than you are, I think. I'm sorry. But when it feels right, you know, not just gratuitously, not kissing for the sake of kissing because, ooh, kissing. I like characters, I like the relationships, I like them to evolve. And if they're supposed to kiss and it feels right and good and infused with heart and passion, then it's a beautiful moment. And if not, then it just feels stilted and weird. And I feel the same way with action. You know, if the moment is right, it's like good, and go, then that's great. But if I feel like I'm forcing it because I'm, you know, trying to make something more actiony, like bam, bam. I don't know what my music is like on what words here. Then that just feels weird. I think it's always about trusting the story and the characters and doing what feels right for them.
Okay, so copy edits, which those know them, is like when you edit the punctuation and grammar in your work, or line edits when you're fixing up the sentences.
Copy edits.
Yeah, me too. There's rules for copy edits.
So easy.
Like comma in the wrong place, I will put it in the right place. Done. I'm going on reading.
And I am currently.
Apparently it worked.
It worked. Yeah. It's a great song. And again, I'm super into anything, written, sung, whatever, that is done with a lot of heart. And this guy like sings with so much heart, and I was just like, oh, I love it. I can feel that soul. So you.
Right now I'm into a song called Every Other Freckle by Alt-J. Just listen to it over and over again.
Alt-J's amazing.
Oh, I looked up the lyrics and I'm like, oh, this song is about something. It's not about a bad thing, it's just, I didn't know. I think we have to, we're moving to questions now. Yeah. I'm gonna turn off this timer. I don't have a stress stream, it's about bugs. It's about bugs infesting my house and me being unable to kill them. Every time.
I did it with more than 4 legs. I just.
No.
and still sort of if you ask me what my greatest fear was, I'd always say, pick me up and drop me in the middle of the ocean. That is my greatest fear. Because I can't swim. I've tried many, many times, and I've always had to be like rescued. Like literally, like I'm drowning, and someone will pull me out of the water. I do not float. I have absolutely no buoyancy. And my husband was like, "You want to go diving?" Because I'm like a master diver, and I like to dive. And I was like, "That's my greatest fear."
But love conquers all because you went.
Yes, exactly. Love conquers fear.
Love conquers fear.
And I was like, okay, for you, I will try. And it was amazing, actually. I actually said the other day, I think the greatest place I've ever been has been underwater. So, conquering your fears is not such a bad thing.
I have a lot of fears, and they get more serious after this point, so I feel like maybe we should move on from there. Because we don't want to bring the house down. We're very scary point.
Which work are you most proud of?
Oh.
I cleaned my kitchen. That's really all I got. Wait, no, books? Nothing? I think I'm always like, you could do better.
That doesn't mean you're not proud.
I don't know, I struggle. I'm really proud of other people. I'm really proud of my husband's books. I'm really proud of your books. Really, like so proud of my friends and like what they've accomplished. But I think I'm my own harshest critic with the book. And it kind of did work that way, but it also didn't. It was not a good idea. But so many things, I actually think, unless you have something, are you ready?
Oh, I'm still lonely.
Because there's one thing that I have found to be true, and I still remind myself of this, and that people tried to tell me before I got published and when I was trying to get published, is to slow down. Stop trying to make it happen so fast. And I always thought, I don't know if there's something about when you're, being young. I wrote my first book right out of college. I was 21. So I'm, trying to, and I'm like, I gotta do this. I have to I get really obsessive about things sometimes. That's how I write too. I write things really obsessive bursts. And I was like, I have to learn and I have to do this quickly. Like it was like I was up against some kind of imaginary timeline. And I'm like, I don't know if I felt old or if it's just there's some sort of impatience about youth that I still feel sometimes. But I have to keep reminding myself that life is long. And my husband says this a lot, and I think it's so true, that the book will be out there for much longer than you spend writing it. And you want to remember that if you want to leave that with someone for a long time and have it be this like evergreen book, you should really take your time with it and not be in such a hurry. And I think that is the one thing I keep reminding myself, is to slow down and enjoy it and take time to learn and reflect and process and not just rush to finish and publish, but to publish well, to do it right, and to be proud, of what you've created.
I say this like I have children. I don't have children. I don't know. But most parents, I feel like parents in the audience, I love my children.
Yeah, I can't speak with such conviction about things I know nothing about.
Yeah. But, okay, so,
Favorite character?
or just some of them. I like to take the question off.
Yeah,
I think a favorite. Are you kidding? Yeah. Some of your favorites.
For me, I really do love Juliet. Juliet is, she's a little weirdo. When you first meet her, she's basically on the verge of insanity in the first book, in the opening. But throughout the course of the series, she's basically recovering from being an extremely self-destructive being. And the writing is sort of a visual representation of her mental breakdown. There are straight-throughs in the text
self-censors a lot. There's a lot of repetition. She's obsessed with words and numbers. She counts things to keep track of place and time. And there are like abrupt breaks. There's like really exaggerated metaphor and hyperbole because she's just sort of lost in her own head. And as she studies as a human being and becomes someone who's not afraid of herself and her voice, so too does the writing and the text. And by the third book, the strike-throughs have disappeared completely, and the writing has taken on a more, understated normalcy, or sort of not understated, but just sort of normalcy. And it becomes a little more refined as she does. And I loved watching her grow up. By the end of the series, I felt like I was looking at like my little sister who had grown into this young woman who had so much dignity and power and was really ready to stand up for herself and what she believed in. And she was really fighting this inner battle, which is what I wanted to do when I told that story. I have known so many strong women in my life, and they have never been physically strong. They've never been women of great physical strength, but instead women of great inner and mental and emotional strength. And I really wanted to capture that and will try to tell that story. So watching her grow up was really important for me. And I struggled with her a lot, but I loved her a lot by the end of the series. So she was great.
That was my favorite part of the series, is just watching her sort of heal over time and become like self-actualized.
Yeah. Heal is such a good word.
I mean, Tris is my favorite. Yeah, I wouldn't have chosen to write about her. I mean, she's kind of prickly, so you gotta love her to spend so much time with her in your head. She really was. She was a voice in my head for a really long time. I mean, I liked watching her figure out what she believed about the world and what was important to her.
I thought Peter
Peter?
such an interesting.
I never knew what to do with him, to be honest. He was always like in your vision, and I was like, Peter is wandering around somewhere I don't know. What is Peter doing? I don't know, he's kind of a jerk.
But he was
I liked him.
he was so, and without spoiling anything, I thought, God, he was such an interesting character to follow. I love characters like that. I like flawed characters, which is why Tris is such a great character. I love how she breathes in Insurgent. We talked about this, but I thought that was so human of her. I love how she's strong, but she also hurts. And I feel like sometimes when we see strong characters in fiction, especially when they're like saving the world, they just go around like killing people and they never really think about it. It's just like the killing is like what makes them strong. And I think that's so inhuman. They have to stop and feel and hurt and grieve. And I thought that was so beautiful that she actually takes the time to do that.
It's actually from reading her review that Insurgent took that shape. I know this is like off topic, and you guys have been sitting there for a really long time, but I'm just gonna keep talking just a couple more seconds. So I read a review of a like grown-up lady, not an adolescent. She's talking about when she lost her own mother, and Tris experiences a lot of loss throughout the series. And she was expressing disappointment that Tris hadn't grieved more at the end of the first book with the losses she experienced there. And I read that before I wrote Insurgent, and I was just like kind of stunned by it, because she didn't say it in a mean way. She was just like, I don't think this was real to me, and I was like, you are correct. So I went to my mother. My mother lost her mother at a young age, so I never met my grandmother. And my mom just told me about like the experience of losing her mother, and that was kind of like where Insurgent started. But it's because someone pointed out that, there's a reason that she doesn't experience grief at the end of Divergent, because she's like on an adrenaline, like rush and can't quite process what's happened to her. And denial, a real state of grief. But for real, it happens. But it was important to me to do justice to this woman's experience.
To honor that.
Yeah, and then, the book, I took it and ran with it as much as I could. But, thank you. I'm glad that you like that part. But I just think it's so for me, I guess the criticism has been such a huge part of writing these books. Even though it's so hard to take a lot of time. And kids, you can